Hi, everyone. So this is going to be our sixth TOEFL prep lesson. I'm going to just check to see if I can hear myself correctly and that you can hear me, see me. Leave a comment of where you are from and when you are planning to take the TOEFL. So you can use the comment box below this video. There's a Facebook comment section and a VK comment section. So please go ahead, write in where you're joining us. If you're watching the replay, you can still comment on there. Okay, I'm just gonna comment here. So, okay, and I'm just gonna listen here, make sure I can hear my voice correctly on there. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, make sure I can. Yeah, I can hear myself there. Okay, great. So yeah, hello, there's Ruslan. Thanks for joining us. Let us know where you're from and when you're planning on taking the TOEFL. So some of you have watched these lessons before, you may have noticed that I mentioned I took the test on February 3rd. So that was about a week or more ago, and I got my results back a couple days ago. So we're going to take a look at some of those results, and I'm really pleased with the results I got. And we're going to take a look at what the official descriptions were there, because they were the best you can get on there. So those are the kind of the scores that you want to aim for, and the characteristics of what they want to see in terms of your reading level, your listening level, your speaking and writing. So we're going to take a look at that in a second. But I just want to kind of see some of your comments here and say hi to everybody. So I see there's Natalia from Ukraine and maybe taking the test in May, and Inessa. Hi, Inessa, and Olya. Hi. So thanks everybody for joining us. Yeah, keep the comments coming, and if you have questions, please let me know as we're going through this. Today, I'll show you my results from the TOEFL, and we're going to look at strategies for the speaking question number 5, which is the campus-related problem. You'll hear two students kind of talking about maybe a situation, a problem, and solutions for that, and giving your opinion or recommendation, suggestion on which one of those solutions the students should take. But okay, and we've got Marina. So hi, Marina from Nizhny Novgorod. Okay, so привет, and another Marina. So hi. So yeah, okay. It's great to see you all here. And I know there's been some questions in the past about whether I speak Russian or not. And I would say, да, я говорю по-русски. Я изучаю русский язык уже 5 лет. So if you have any questions in Russian, I could probably read them as well and try to answer them with a general understanding. I might need to use Google Translate once in a while to get all the details and questions, but if you want, you can leave a comment there in Russian as well. So yeah, there's another Anna from Russia and currently studying in Finland. Okay, great. Yeah, so there's a mix of people here. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to go, and then I'll be back. You can see me as we get back to the kind of the end of this. But I'll keep an eye on this other screen so I can see your comments and see that. So okay, and as I show my screen in a second here, please let me know you can see my screen. That way I can kind of make sure that this is working properly. Okay, so you should see my screen in a second. I'm going to check that, make sure that's true. see there might be a little delay here. Yeah, you can see my screen. Okay, great. And so we're here, this lesson number 6, and we're looking at the speaking task 5. And for those of you who may not know me, my name is Jonathan. I'm an American English teacher from California, outside of like the Los Angeles area. Thanks for the message. You can see the screen. I appreciate that, Marina. And I've been learning languages for over 20 years. I started with Spanish and French. I did some German at university, and then some Russian on my own. And more recently, I've been, as I mentioned, learning Russian for about 5 years. Took about 2 years at a language school, and I've been teaching it to myself and practicing with native speakers as well. And I've been tutoring languages since '99. Since when I finished high school, I started tutoring American students, high school students, university students, learning Spanish and French and a little bit of German. And then when I finished university in 2002, I was starting to teach English in the US. And then when I moved to France, I lived in Paris for about 6 years, and I was teaching English freelance, and then in elementary schools and businesses. And then I moved to Mexico City in 2008, and I've been still teaching English at businesses, and then I've been teaching a lot online since 2009 via Skype, and then principally this last year has been a lot of TOEFL preparations. And so I've also worked as a translator for Spanish English and French English, and I also do some language programming for web apps. Like a couple of them were like to teach myself Russian for like Russian noun and adjective declensions and Russian verb conjugation. So I do some of that stuff as well to kind of help students and help other people learning languages. So that's a little bit about me. And thanks for joining here today. So I can see also a comment here from Asel, so from Kazakhstan. So hi, and thanks for joining us. Okay, so I want to give you a little bit an insight into the results I got back from my test. So as you can see here, I got a 28 in reading, a 29 in listening, a 30 in speaking, a 30 in writing. Sorry if that's a little small on the screen. Maybe I should zoom in a little bit there. Or make this bigger. That kind of goes off the screen there, but okay. But yeah, I got a total of 117. And sorry if the next screen it's a little hard to read, but I'm going to go read through kind of what are the results I got back from the official report there. And these results that they say here, these are kind of like the things that you want to focus on. So here for the reading section, which ended up being my lowest score because I got like maybe a few wrong answers. And as I mentioned in the last session that we did, it was like the reading section is the first thing that you do on the test. So if you have any like you can't concentrate or can't focus, that might be a distraction. And depending on the content that you have to read, a couple of the reading passages that I had, they were just like very dense with a lot of technical information. So that was a little challenging. So even as a native speaker, there was like 1 or 2 questions where it wasn't exactly obvious what the correct answer was. So they do an excellent job at creating wrong answers and distracting answers. So you have to be very careful about the answers that are on the test. And because there's the time limit, lots of students are kind of rushing through the questions. So you have to be careful. Like you have the time limit, but you need to kind of be careful about the answers on there, and really make sure that you understand those answers very clearly. So from now on, I'm going to be really improving my reading strategies and going through a lot more of the materials with students and trying to contact other people who are specialized in reading and to get their tips, their strategies, and to make sure I can continue helping students the best I can, especially for the reading section, since that was also a bit challenging for me. So what they say on here is, okay, test takers who receive a score at the high level typically understand academic texts in English that require a wide range of reading abilities regardless of the difficulty of the text. So this is a very good command of academic vocabulary and grammatical structure, understanding and connecting information, making appropriate inferences, synthesizing ideas, even when the text is conceptually dense and the language is complex. So I do recognize that, yes, the text was dense. It is full of a lot of technical terms. Also, reading it on the page, you don't have a lot of spaces between lines on the side of the text, so it can be very difficult to kind of focus. Also on here, recognize the expository organization of a text and the role that specific information serves within the larger text, even when the text is conceptually dense, and can abstract major ideas from a text even when the text is conceptually dense and contains complex language. So you can see on here they keep making reference to conceptually dense or complex. So you really need to expect that you're going to have difficult reading passages. So in the past, if I told students like, yes, you could just read newspapers and magazines and read novels and short stories, that's not going to be enough. So I think now I need to tell a lot of students, you need to read painful, boring academic texts in subject matters that you're not familiar with. So you really need to push yourself out of your comfort zone to be familiar with a wide variety of topics that you might not enjoy or not particularly like. And on the test, you don't really have a choice. So if they give you a text on biology or science or like physics or astronomy, and those are not your strong areas, well, unfortunately, you don't have a choice. So you do have to read those texts. You do have to answer them. So you could perhaps complain and not want to willingly go through those questions and answers, but to get a high score on the reading section, you need to be kind of open-minded and realize, okay, you could have a variety of texts on here, and you have to do the best you can to kind of get through that material. So I'm definitely going to be recommending a lot more difficult, challenging, complex texts to students so they can be as best prepared as possible. Okay, so the next part on here was the listening section. So I got one mistake on there. I did take lots and lots of notes on the listening section, but I basically think that I didn't have to necessarily take a lot of those notes because it was a bit kind of most of it was information coming from my memory. I can see on here that this appears very small on the screen. I'm sorry about that. I'll read through what was on here. But basically, test takers who receive a score at the high level typically understand conversations and lectures in English that present a wide range of listening demands. These demands can include difficult vocabulary, uncommon terms, colloquial, figurative language, complex grammatical structures, abstract, complex ideas, and making sense of unexpected or seemingly contradictory information. So when listening to lectures and conversations like these, test takers at the high level typically can understand main ideas and important details, whether they are stated or implied, distinguish more important ideas from less important ones, understand how information is being used, for example, to provide evidence for a claim or describe a step in a complex process, recognize how pieces of information are connected, for example, in a cause and effect relationship, understand many different ways that speakers use language for purposes other than to give information, for example, to emphasize a point, express agreement or disagreement, or convey intentions indirectly, and synthesize information even when it is not presented in sequence, and make correct inferences on the basis of that information. So those are a lot of the skills that you need to work on for the listening skills. So I know that like with the note taking, it's important, and kind of understanding how the information might be presented out of order, or the speakers might correct themselves or use their voice and intonation to express different things. So you need to be sensitive to kind of how people are using their voice in addition to just the information and the words on there. Okay, and let's keep moving on here. Then the speaking section, you have the 3 situations here, which is familiar topics, campus-related topics, and academic course content. So here I got a 30 out of 30, and this is where I spent a lot more of my time with students working on their speaking. And as you can see with these lessons, we've gone into a lot of detail of how to prepare the speaking section. So this is where I have a lot more confidence in the preparation. So for the familiar topics, they say here, your responses indicate an ability to communicate your personal experiences and opinions effectively in English. Overall, your speech is clear and fluent. The use of vocabulary and grammar is effective with only minor errors. Hopefully I didn't have any. Your ideas are generally well developed and expressed coherently. So that's basically these, we've talked about this before, where you need a variety of vocabulary and grammar, making sure that your speech is clear. Make sure that you're speaking like fluently and fluidly, and that you're developing your topic. So those are the 3 things that they're generally looking for in your answers. For the campus situation text, basically it's the same things. My responses indicate an ability to speak effectively in English. And here it's making the relationship between reading material and conversations by university students. Overall, your responses are clear and coherent, with only occasional errors of pronunciation, grammar, or vocabulary. I think that's just a standard statement that they put there. And then with the academic course material here, responses demonstrate an ability to communicate effectively in English about academic topics, typical of first-year university studies. Your speech is mostly clear and fluent. You're able to use appropriate vocabulary and grammar to explain concepts and ideas from reading or lecture material. You're able to talk about key information and relevant details with only minor inaccuracies. So I think those are some important details that they mentioned here for the lectures, saying you need to get the most important information. And if you're going to present the relevant details, you need to make sure that that information is accurate. So they'll be paying attention to if you present information and it's slightly wrong, that's going to distinguish between like a high level answer and a slightly lower one. So this is what they say here for the speaking section. And lastly, for the writing, they say for the integrated one, writing based on reading and listening. So you responded well to the task relating the lecture to the reading. Weaknesses, if you have any, might have to do with slight imprecision in your summary of some of the main points and or use of English that is occasionally ungrammatical or unclear. So I think, again, that's a standard statement there. But I think in terms of the word count, I had probably about 470 words. I think the limit or the minimum is usually about 150 to 225 words. So I kind of surpassed that, almost double that. And I made sure to have a very clear presentation of the material between the lecture and the reading passage. And then on this other section here, the writing based on knowledge and experience. So you responded with a well-organized and developed essay. Weaknesses, if any, use of English that is occasionally ungrammatical, unclear, or unidiomatic, and or elaboration of ideas or connection of ideas that could have been stronger. So keep in mind those little points there. You want to be developing your ideas as much as you can, making sure that if you're using phrases or grammar, make sure it's very clear and understandable what you're saying. And just try to develop your ideas as much as you can for that. So those are basically the results I got back from my test. So we'll be going through this little by little through these lessons. But today, I just wanted to share that information with you, and we're going to focus mostly on the speaking task number 5 right now. So any questions so far on those results? And sorry if it appears very small on the screen. I just wanted to kind of share with you the report. Maybe I can give you a link to this information so you can see it a little bit more calmly in text and not so small. Okay. I see a question here from Inessa, like where can we find academic texts for reading? Well, ETS has a couple example test materials that you can find on their website. I'll try to find the link here in a little bit where you can find one example. ETS also has these sample tests, previous tests that you can purchase. I have the 2 volumes. I have the volume 1, volume 2 of those passages. And what else would I say here? There are many scientific journals that are like published by universities. So I think the level of vocabulary that might be in those journals and articles could be a good reading practice for the level of vocabulary, the level of grammar, just to be at a higher level. And I will continue looking for examples that I can share, especially when we get to the reading section with these lessons. Okay, well, I'm going to move on here to the speaking task number 5. Okay, so hopefully this is not, again, too small on the screen, but what we're talking about for this speaking task 5 is summarizing a campus-related problem and 2 solutions, giving your opinion on which solution you would recommend and why. So you don't have any reading materials here. Task 3 and 4 include a reading and audio. For task 5 and 6, you only have audio. So in this one, you're listening to a conversation, and then you have 20 seconds, not 30. You have 20 seconds to prepare after you take notes from the conversation, and then you have 60 seconds to give your answer. Okay. Some of the ways that these questions are typically phrased is briefly summarize the woman's problem, or briefly summarize the problem the speakers are discussing. Or it says the students discuss a problem and 2 possible solutions, briefly summarize the problem. Or the speakers discuss 2 possible solutions to the woman's problem. It's not always women. They're all also you can have the man. So you always have a man and a woman in a conversation, and it'll be one or the other for who has a situation that needs to be resolved. So you just make sure you state what the solutions are and what your recommendation would be based on possible solution. So and make sure you're explaining why. So one typical problem I see with student answers is that they spend maybe like 45, 50 seconds giving me the summary of what the problem is and what the solutions are, and never getting to their recommendation or their preference. So if you give me too much detail about, so the man talks to the woman and says, "Hi, how are you?" And the woman says, "I'm fine, thanks. And how is your class?" And you want to skip a lot of that information. You want to get straight to the point about what is the problem, what are the solutions, and spend most of your time giving your recommendation and reasons why. So you kind of want to interpret task 5 as kind of like a task number 2, where you have to choose between 2 things and develop your answer. So, however, this one, you do need a combination of summarizing what the problem is and what the solutions are, but you want to spend about 40 seconds or so. Of those 60 seconds, you want to spend about 40 of it talking about what your recommendation is and your reasons why you would prefer this. So, okay. So as we've looked at before, these are the speaking rubrics from ETS, and they're looking at how clearly you speak, your pronunciation, your intonation patterns, if you have any pauses in your speaking, if your pacing is good, the way you're using the language, if the grammar is correct, if it's effective, the variety and the range of your vocabulary, if you sound like automatic when you're using those expressions, and how well you're developing a topic. Are your ideas expressed clearly? Are they coherent? Are they connected? Are you using relative specific details? So these are things that you need to keep in mind for your answers. and you can use this link that's at the bottom there so that you can go directly to this and read it, because I know it appears a little small on the on there. Okay, so so I see some questions about advice for books. We'll get to that in a little bit. And I see a comment here from Test. If you can see my comments, I'm not sure what you mean by that question, Varujan. If you could clarify your question there a little bit. Okay. Okay. So basically, what you need to include in your answer, specifically for this one, task 5, is clearly stating the essential facts of the problem. Briefly mention what the 2 possible solutions are. And as I mentioned here, spend the majority of the time talking about your recommendation, and make sure you explain your reasons for your preference, for your recommendation. Don't try to repeat all of the details from the conversation, because the conversation might take about 2-3 minutes, and you only have 60 seconds, so you can't possibly include everything. You have to choose, and you have to focus on the most essential information there. Try to rephrase things. That shows a good level of understanding if you can put things in your own words and not just repeat verbatim what you heard. Try to use a wide range of vocabulary. Try to avoid repeating words, and try to speak fluidly, clearly. Try not to hesitate too much, and be careful with your voice, like use the right intonation patterns to express meaning, and make sure your answer is organized and easy to understand and follow. So those are some of the main things you need to focus on for your answer. So these should start to look familiar. I've included these suggestions in previous answers, but there are a few little things to focus on specifically here for the task 5 for that. Okay. And let's move on here. So this template and phrases that you could use here are things like, this little template is coming from the Cracking the TOEFL book, and this is basically state the problem, state the solutions, state your preference. So that's basically those 3 points. If you look at the question, they want you to state what the problem is, what the solutions are, and spend the time talking about your preference. So your preference, as you can see, it's a bit longer in the development there. And so this would be your reason number 1, the detail for that reason, and reason number 2, and the detail for that. Sorry, I could see that the presentation was zoomed out a little bit, so I'm zooming in so you can see that a little bit better on the screen, especially since I have a lot of these phrases that I'd like you to be able to work with here. So I'm going to try to make sure you can see this a bit better on the screen. So, so a way to get started would be to say a little bit like the problem is that, or the student, the students discuss the man's problem, which is that, or the woman's problem is that, or the man has a problem with, and then starting to get into what the suggestions are. So I would recommend that you review how to use verbs like suggest, recommend, advise. Those are some verbs that would come up frequently. So yeah, I see a comment here from Maxime to like get the image a little bit clearer and distinct. So I'm trying to see how to, I think it might be related to the Google Hangouts as well. I'm not sure. I'm trying to see if I can get this to focus a little bit more so you can see it, because on my screen it looks clear, but then I can see the way it looks on the presentation here. So I'm not quite sure how to get that to focus. I'll try to zoom in a little bit more here if this helps, so you can see. There's a question here about using the verb shall and instead of I will. I'm not necessarily convinced that shall would be more academic. I think shall is a little difference between like American English, British English. I think they use shall a little bit more frequently in British English. And I generally use just will in American English. And usually shall is just like I, you, and we for that. Okay. Oh yeah, fixing the settings in YouTube. The picture is actually very clear. Okay. So yeah, thank you for that suggestion. I do recognize that when you're watching YouTube videos, if you look at where the settings button is, that's like a little like a gear icon. I would click that and then go where it says quality. You can switch that from auto to 720, because right now I'm and that definitely would improve the quality. I just clicked on that for myself, and because the webcam I'm using is not just the webcam, but you can really improve the quality there. So as you can see this on the YouTube button there, click the settings icon and move it from auto to HD. And that should really help make the image clearer for that. I hope that helps you guys. So, okay, so a couple more phrases that you could use here is getting to what the potential solutions are. So his friend or her friend proposes 2 different solutions, and then just simply say first or second, and then getting into your opinion. That's where you need to use a little bit more variety and more development. So you can things like, I think that, in my opinion, I agree with the man's suggestions that, I believe the woman should, I like the man's first idea because, and the reason I think so is that, or because, and then getting into more details like a second reason, another reason why, or also, additionally. So those are some other template phrases that you could use as you're developing your answer. So I've collected these phrases from a couple different resources, and these are kind of some of the ones I like to use with students. Okay, there's a question here about what to do in a panic attack and start answering. So yes, this is definitely true. You want to practice these questions as much as you can before you actually take the test, so that you can have some control over your nerves. Because the idea of using like a template in terms of structuring your answer of, okay, I need to state the problem. Okay, now in my notes, I need to know what the solutions are and just briefly say what they are. And then I need to spend time on my preference. Generally, I think if you're spending the time on your preference and explaining why you think somebody should do this or that, that's a little bit more under your control. The first part of this question is a little bit of just stating information, rephrasing it, summarizing the information that you heard in the conversation. So hopefully your notes are going to be going to help you with that part. And then like the 2/3 of this answer is based on you and your preference. So I think you want to kind of get, you want to gain some confidence about what do you do when friends ask you for a suggestion. So think of situations where friends or family members have come to you for advice and they ask you like, hey, what should I do in this situation? So think about the phrases that you use in your native language first. Like, what kind of phrases do you use to give people advice? So sometimes what I see with a lot of students here is that sometimes this isn't just a question of using English. I mean, the TOEFL is testing your English, but sometimes these are kind of communication skills. You want to practice some of these things even in your native language to like, can you go through this template in your native language? Can you listen to a conversation? Like, listen to the TOEFL passage, the conversation here, and just go through the process of stating what the problem is in your native language, stating what the solutions are in your native language, and then stating, expressing what your preference is and the reasons why. Just get in the habit of going through that structure in your native language until that structure feels comfortable, and then transition back to English. So that will give you a little more confidence in terms of how to structure your answer. And so that when you're on the day of the test, you're not really improvising the structure. So this structure template should give you some kind of comfort and allow you to be a little bit more comfortable with your speaking. So the only details you should be really improvising are the things that would be specific to what you heard in a conversation or what you heard in a lecture. So, but if you practice these templates and these phrases frequently enough, they should start to become automatic and you don't really have to think about them. And if something doesn't kind of come out of your mouth pronounced correctly, use a different one. That's why I give you some of these phrases here so you can kind of pick and choose which ones are easy for you to remember and which ones are easy for you to use. So the idea is like, try a lot of them, see which ones you like, see which ones are easy for you to use, and just keep using those ones. And just practice this as much as you can. Okay. So there's another question here about when you pass the exams, there's TOEFL and IELTS, can you use American slang? Sorry. I wouldn't so much use slang, like informal vocabulary. I would use more academic level of phrases and idiomatic expressions. That would probably raise your level of speaking. This isn't quite so much a way of using informal slang because these are academic tests, TOEFL and IELTS. You want to use a higher level of speaking. So it's just similar. Like, would you use slang with a professor? If it wouldn't really make a lot of sense to do that. I would say you would want to speak as like correctly and as well as you possibly can with a professor. You want to impress them at a high level of speaking. This isn't quite like the English that you would use on the street. You want to, if you're going to be studying at a university, you want to be you want to look intelligent and sound intelligent with the way you use English. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I want to give you guys an opportunity to answer a question and send me an audio recording so I can give you live feedback here. So if you've seen a couple of these other lessons in the past few weeks, we've used this tool called Speakpipe. So I'm going to show you this here. So this is the speakpipe.com/voice recorder. I'm going to put the link here in the comments so you can guys use this. So this is Speakpipe. I'm putting that there in the comments right now so you can just click on it and use it. And that's the recording tool that you can use. And when you use this tool, you just click on the Start Recording button. You click that, you'll get this icon that it's showing that it's recording you. Then you click the Stop button. Then after that, you get this next screen. You can click Skip. Then after Skip, you'll get the next image that appears where it says, here's your recording. Click Save on Server. Next, you can put your name. You don't have to, that's optional. Then click the Save button. And then after that processes, you'll get this link where it says, okay, speakpipe.com/voice recorder, and then MSG for the message. And you want to make sure you get all of these characters. So it's about like 14, 15. Maybe first on your screen, it might just be like 4 or 5 letters. Make sure you get the full link. So what you can do is double click there until the whole thing is selected, and then copy and paste that in the comments to this video. And then I can click on it and listen to it, and we can all listen to it, and I can give you feedback on your answer. So let me just go back one screen again so you can see this process one more time. So you go to the link, Speakpipe, click the Start Recording button, make sure it gives access to your webcam or microphone. Then you speak for about 60 seconds for this answer. Click the Stop button, then click Skip. Then on the next image, you'll have Save on Server. You can include your name, click Save, then it will process that audio file and give you a link to your recording, and copy and paste that entire recording in the comments to this video, and I will listen to that and give you live feedback. So here I'm going to give you an example question that we can work with, and this is coming from Exam English. I'm going to give you the link to that, so you can, if you don't want to see it on the screen, you can go directly to this link. So this is the example question that we're going to do here, and this is here. I'll include this over here on the Facebook and the VK. Okay, so that's the question here. I have to zoom out slightly. So you're going to have this conversation. Take notes if you wish, and then the question is, briefly summarize the man's 2 options for the holidays, then state which solution you would recommend, explain the reasons for your recommendation. Sorry, I have to zoom out slightly there. So I'm going to play the recording. You guys can all listen to this, and then we will allow you to go through there. And okay, so here is the conversation.
Did you hear about the work experience scheme that the college is offering for the vacation?
I heard something about it, yeah.
You get to work in a law office and see how all the things we've been learning in our lectures are relevant and can be put into practice.
It sounds useful.
I'm sure it is. We need practical skills to really understand the job. We'll be able to use what we've learned in our assignments next term, and it'll be more enjoyable in the long term too. Plus, you get paid, which is a real bonus.
Yes, it's a shame I won't be able to go.
Won't you? Why not?
I want to retake one of my exams again, the exam on family law.
Did you fail it? I didn't realize.
No, I didn't fail it, but I didn't do very well. I was sick a lot last term and I missed a lot of lectures. I know I can do better, and my tutor says I can retake it if I complete a 2-week revision course during the holidays.
So it isn't necessary.
No, but our final grade depends on our exam results for all the units we've studied. Every grade counts, and I want to do as well as I can. Besides, the revision course doesn't cost anything. It's free, and since there won't be many students there, I'll be able to talk in depth to the tutors about any aspects of family law that I find confusing.
Well, in my mind, getting some work experience at a real law firm is far more interesting and useful, especially since you don't need to take the exam again.
I suppose you could be right. Well, I can still drop out. I'll think about it.
Okay, so hopefully you guys have taken some notes there, and hopefully the understanding was a little bit clear. So basically, you have the student, and he's in like a law class, and he's trying to think about his options during a holiday break. This other student mentions that there's a work opportunity, but this guy is thinking about redoing a test, and the woman is trying to convince him of that, well, maybe he doesn't have to take that test. Maybe it might be better to get work experience. Okay, so what I'd like to see is if some of you brave people here would like to get feedback on your speaking. So maybe take about 60 seconds to briefly summarize this man's 2 options for the holidays, like I just mentioned here, and state which solution you would recommend and why. What are your reasons for that recommendation? Which one would you prefer? So hopefully we're going to get somebody to provide a speaking answer here that I can listen to and give some feedback on. Okay. There's a question here from Kema. Is it enough to do all the practice tests in one book, for example, cracking TOEFL, or I need more than one book to prepare? I would say multiple tests would be best. I have gotten some feedback from different students about different books that they've had. Like one student was really not all that happy with like the Barron's review, and we listened to at least like 1 or 2 of the listening questions that they had, and it did seem to kind of not completely be like the other questions that I've seen typically from like the ETS materials. Mostly in terms of like preparation materials and testing materials, I would focus as much as possible on authentic materials coming from ETS. That's the one suggestion I would make. That would be that since ETS are the people who are making the test and the ones who are evaluating your answers and all that, I would focus on their materials. Sorry for the background noise here. You want to focus on getting authentic materials as much as possible, and also doing a variety of tests. You don't want to just do one practice test. I would suggest doing practice materials, multiple sources, so you get like as comfortable as you can to prepare for the test. So there's and if you have taken a test before, maybe early in your preparations, do the practice session again. There's a chance that you might not remember everything. So if you're the kind of person who circles answers in a book, I might suggest putting your answers on a separate piece of paper. That way your book stays kind of unblemished. That way you could take it again. And if you have prepared your speaking answers for a question, you can always do that speaking question again and improve upon it. So if you've done something once, you can go back and do it again to get more comfortable with it, more confident with your answer. For example, when you watch a movie, the scenes that you see in a movie, it's very likely that the actors had to do those scenes multiple times until they got it right. So the only time that you see actors improvising and doing something live is when you go to a theater. So so keep in mind, these recordings, you might want to do them multiple times. Okay. For the ETS tests, let me get the link here. You can get the materials. I'm looking for the link here. Just one second. And thank you, Dennis, for your speaking answer. I'm going to listen to that in 1 second here. Just want to find this link for these preparing for the test here. So here is the ets.org TOEFL IBT prep section. They have materials on here, and they do have some of free materials as well that I would recommend. So this is ets.org/TOEFL/IBT/prepare. And if you scroll down on there, you can see some of these test preparation materials: TOEFL Practice Online, TOEFL Practice Online Speaking Series, the official guide to the TOEFL. And then I have those 2 volumes as well, the volume 2, volume 1 for the official tests. And you'll have some of these also free test preparation resources, the sampler, the test questions, the quick prep, and also free additional resources. So you can go through those things. Also, every once in a while on edX, the courses, the MOOCs, the massive open online courses, there is one for the TOEFL that I've seen open every once in a while. They do that every couple months. They open that up. I'll see if I can find a link there for that. But edX, TOEFL. Yeah, the Insider's Guide. Let me see. I don't know when oh, it says, yeah, you can enroll now. There's a session from edX that started on January 25th. So that's, you can still enroll in that actually. So it's still open. So yeah, this is one from edX that's still open that you can enroll in. There's more free materials in that one as well. So you can get extra preparation materials. Okay. Yeah, and thank you, Dennis, for that link as well for the TOEFL prep. Okay, let me listen to you. Oh, okay, yeah, great. There's a couple speaking answers here from Dennis and from Olya. So let's listen to those and give you guys some feedback here. So I'm going to.
According to the conversation, the man did quite bad his exam of family laws, and on holidays he can take 2 weeks revising course and retake the exam. Also, he can work at the lowest company for work experience. In my opinion, the first solution is better because final grade depends on each courses, each marks which he took, and he will be more competitive on a job market if he has higher marks. Also, he can improve his knowledge about subject because he missed a lot of lectures. That's why I think the first solution is better.
Wow, great. Oh, okay. Yeah, I really like that structure that you have there. I think you covered all the points there of what the problem was, what the two possible solutions were, and I think you're using some good phrases there of saying, like, I think the first one was better, and then explaining why. So I think in terms of your structure of your answer, I think that's very good. I might want to, in terms of your speaking, I might improve a little bit like the pronunciation, articulation, so that it might be easier to understand your answer. So those are a few things I would suggest. But overall, your structure was really good. I really like that. Thank you. Let me listen to another one here from Olya.
The problem is that the university suggests going on for some courses for the students, and this is like a work opportunity. So you're going to be paid, and it's like an education as well. So two students are talking about this great opportunity, and the girl is really excited about it, but her friend doesn't really think that it's a good idea for him, and he gives his arguments that he needs to retake his exam because he didn't do well and he can't do better actually, and most of all it influences his final grades. So he doesn't want to go and to use this opportunity of working abroad. I think that I would recommend him to really to do what he really wants to, and I would prefer to retake my exams, because if you have potential, if you can do better, then why don't you do this? And all this experience can wait.
Okay. My first observation is that this recording is like almost a minute and 30 seconds. So that would definitely be cut off after the first 60 seconds. So you really need to be careful with the 60-second mark. And also, I think not to single you out, but I would say this is very typical I see for a lot of first answers where students might take focus too much on small details of the conversation. And I think it's really important to just make a summary, like paraphrasing what the problem is and the solutions are in less than 20 seconds. So if you get too far into the details of why the student doesn't like this idea or why they prefer this, that's really not what this question is asking you. They're not asking you for the student's reasons why they like it or not. They're just asking you what the problem is and what the two possible solutions are. But in terms of clarifying whose reasons for one or the other, they should be yours. So you need to spend a lot more time with your recommendation and your preference for that. Also, you're using the word you in your answer, and I don't think that's really appropriate. I would say this is talking about a third person, a man and a woman. So I would keep that the vocabulary or the pronoun use to specifically to the man or the woman, and then I in terms of my opinion and why I would suggest that the man do this, or I would recommend that the woman do this. So try to keep your the speaking focused on that way. And also the level of detail in this answer, it's a little bit more, it's not so precise enough. It's a bit vague in terms of that. Also, the speaking is a bit slow. So I would practice trying to speak a little faster if possible, because that will kind of, if you're speaking a bit slower, that's you're not going to get a chance to get as much content in your answer. So hopefully that has been helpful for that response. Let's listen to another one here from Marina.
In this order, it is discussed the man's problem that is about to start working and getting an experience in an office and be paid, or retake a family law test. As for me, I would recommend the man to retake a family law test, because I agree with him that every grade counts, and who knows, maybe this test is it will be very good for his portfolio. And anyway, it's free, so he won't lose anything, and he can find a job later, and probably better. So I would recommend him to pass this family law test again, and to prove that he is good enough and has enough knowledge for this test.
Okay, well, thank you. So I do like that you were able to summarize the problem and what the two solutions are very briefly, and you did spend time developing your answer in terms of which one you would recommend and why, and your ideas seemed clear on there. In terms of your speaking and delivery, and in terms of the language use, sorry, you do happen to have like shorter phrases. So that kind of creates like a not so fluid answer as you're developing your answer. So I would try to practice your speaking as much as you can, so that those answers kind of flow a little bit faster, and that your answers aren't, your sentences are not so short. So you might want some more variety in your phrases and the grammar. But overall, the content was good there. I think there was one tiny thing there about knowledges. I would say knowledge, it's uncountable. And also be careful with the, like, I would recommend that he, or I would recommend that she, instead of saying I would recommend him. So those are some grammatical structures that I would review for that. And let me get a last audio here from Jana, and then I think we will wrap this up for today. But thank you everybody for your speaking audio samples. So let's get here from Jana.
The problem is the guy didn't do very well his exam, and now he wants to retake this one. And the solving of the problem is to work in law office. I agree with your advice. Firstly, work experience is very necessary in your future job. You can learn more about the field where you will work. And the second is networking, because when you are working, you can meet a lot of interesting people with different backgrounds, and make a lot of contacts in your field.
Okay, great. Thank you for your answer. And I would say your reasons were, you did a good job of kind of explaining, clarifying which solution you would prefer. In terms of your delivery, it did feel a little kind of hesitant. So it did sound like you were reflecting, trying to think about what you're going to say next. So I would practice sort of recording yourself using like this tool here, the Speakpipe, as much as you can to kind of practice giving these answers, and so that becomes a bit more fluid. Yeah, those would be a few observations I would make for your speaking. But basically, you did have the content there. Again, I'm not a big fan of using the word you in these answers. I would keep the focus on either myself or the man, woman. So those are a few things there. I do see that there's like maybe one or two more listening recordings here, but I think we are running out of time here. So I will listen to these and give you feedback on here. But I think we will end here for today. I'm going to kind of stop sharing my screen so you can see me before we say goodbye. And so thank you everybody for participating in today's lesson. And I would thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for your answers. I hope this has been helpful for you in terms of getting feedback on your speaking. And if you would like to get more personalized lessons, I would say, let me see if I get pointing my finger correctly. There should be a button over here. Let me see if I'm pointing correctly. That should be where it says zabonirovat indywidualnoye zaniatia z żonetonem od $34 zabronirovat. Yeah, so if you click there on that button, you can find out a little bit more about the lessons and packages, especially for like the TOEFL prep there. So I'm really happy to help as many students as I can. And if you take a individual lesson, I can help you specifically for your speaking needs, your writing needs, and also come up with more strategies that will help you. So these lessons are more kind of general for everybody. And if you want more specific kind of personalized preparations, feel free to check that out for a lesson, a private lesson, and I'll be happy to help you. So thank you everybody for watching. Unfortunately, next week I won't be available, but we will be back 2 weeks from now. That should be, what is that? That should be March 1st. So that'll be the next lesson. We'll continue looking at the speaking task number 6, and we'll look at more strategies for that. So thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day. See you soon.